Hey guys, I know it's been a while since we've last made a video, but today I just wanted to do a quick video on how to configure BGP import and export policies. Now, this will be done in our EVE-NG lab. What you see here is pretty confusing, I understand. What we'll be focusing on is just these two routers, BGP Peer 1 and BGP Peer 2. I only included this we've got a few static routes that's pointing to the CPE1 here for all the subnets, 192.168.0.10, 1.10 and 2.10, and the same on the side, 10.10, 11.10 and 12.10. Right, so we're not going to be focusing on this at all. They only exist so that we can configure static routes on these BGP peer routers, which we will then advertise to each other. Right, so let's look at the config. So yeah, we've got BGP peer 1, and if we just do a show display set, nothing much is happening here as usual. We just have the interface towards BGP peer 2, and that's got an IP of 10.10.10.1/30. Then we just have an uplink to CPE1, which is the SRX where all these networks are connected to, right? So then I've just got a static route for those networks with the next hop of the SRX, right? And then I've just got a normal BGP setup here between the two. We've got EBGP set up. I will actually do a video on IBGP as well, because the export policy changes a little bit. You just need to remember to include a next hop self statement, but for EBGP it's not needed, and I'll show you that just now. So let's have a look at the config on BGP peer 2 and just to show display set here, and you'll see it's exactly the same. We have a static route for these three subnets, then we've got an uplink to BGP peer 1 and another uplink to the CPE. Right, so if we go back to BGP peer 1, we can just do a run show BGP summary, and you can see that our BGP is up for the last 15 minutes, but we're not receiving any routes. Now, this is a slightly older GNOS version. In the newer versions, you would see an ESTB for established on the right hand side here, but it doesn't really matter. It's just that the layout changes slightly, but the config is still exactly the same. All right, so what we'll be attempting to do is we'll be advertising these three subnets to this BGP peer on this side. I just want to show you what you can do with BGP import and export policies, how to accept routes from certain neighbors, how to export routes into BGP from certain protocols, etc. So let's get right to it. Right, so the first thing you have to remember that if you want to export something into BGP, that route needs to be active in the routing table. So if we do a run show route here, you'll see that we've got these three routes. Oh, sorry, not those three, these three routes: 192.168.0.0/24, 1.0/24, and 2.0/24. And these match our static routes that we've set up. So the star here indicates that these are active routes. So it means that we can actually export them into BGP. If a route does not show up here, or it does not have a star, meaning the active route, then unfortunately you won't be able to export it into BGP, because that route does not really exist in the routing table. All right, so first off, we'll just go into top edit policy options here, and we'll configure a policy statement. I'm just going to name it BGP export, right? So we'll just do set policy statement BGP-export, because I want to export routes from this router to the other one, right? So set policy statement BGP export. We'll configure a few terms here. So we'll just start off with term 1. We'll say from protocol, right? And this is where you need to remember which routes you want to advertise. So these are static routes, so the protocol would be static, right? So we'll just do from protocol static, right? Then we want to add another statement under term 1. I just made a few mistakes there. So let's just go into edit policy statement BGP export here, just to make it a little bit easier, right? So all I've done is term 1 from protocol static. Then we'll do set term 1 from route filter. Okay, so what you want to do here is you want to match the route that you are advertising. This is not necessary for the routes to be exported. With this statement alone, you should be able to export all your static routes. But in case you have static routes that you don't want to export into BGP, it's best to just define a route filter, right? So we'll just say 192.168.0.0/24, because that is the route as it is in the routing table, and we'll say exact. Now you can define or longer, you can define many options here. So if we say or longer, this one, it'll mean that if this route matches exactly, or if we have a 192.168.0.3/32, it will also be advertised because it falls within this /24 subnet, but it is a longer match route. I'm not going to confuse it too much with that, but we'll just use the exact statement for these at the moment. So we'll just go exact, and then we'll do exactly the same for the other two routes as well, 1.0 and 2.0, right? Those are the correct routes that we want to advertise. Then we just say set term 1, then accept, because you want to basically export these routes. You want the action to be accepted. Now, if we just do a show, that's pretty much all you have to do on the advertiser's side. What you can do, although it's not necessarily needed when it comes to export policies, it's just safer to do. We just do a set term reject. Let's just name it a reject, then reject. Okay. So what it looks like now is it'll match on this, it'll be accepted, and then anything else will be rejected. But as I said, for an export policy, the term reject is not really needed because you have to define what you want to export anyway. But this is a good habit to have, all right? Because we'll be using this on the import policy. Okay, so then if we then, let's do a top and commit, I'm pretty sure it'll go through. Right, so now if we do run show route advertising protocol BGP, I will just put in our BGP number, which is 10.10.10.2, right? And we're not advertising anything. So what you need to do is you're going to top edit protocols BGP. We'll go into this group that we've got configured here. Let's just go up to the config, which is EBGP. Right, so we just EBGP, so let's just do a show, and you'll see this is where our BGP is set up. So why is the route not being advertised? Well, you actually have to configure an import and export statement here as well. Right, so, or action. So we'll just say set export. Now, just before we do this, you can say set export to BGP-export, or you can say set neighbor and export. So this is useful if you have more than one neighbor in a BGP group and you want to advertise different routes to different neighbors. But in our example, we only have one neighbor. So this statement here, set export BGP export, applies to the whole group. So every neighbor that's defined here will receive these routes. If you only specify a single neighbor for an export policy, only that neighbor will receive the routes you are exporting. Right, we'll just use the normal set export BGP export. Now, if we do a show here, now you'll see we've got that as an export policy configured, and we can go ahead and do a commit. So now if we run this same command again, I'm not going to type it out, copy and paste. Now you'll see we've got these routes being advertised to that BGP neighbor. And you'll see that the next hop is set to self. This is default behavior for EBGP. When it comes to IBGP, it's a little bit more tricky. You actually have to configure the next hop self statement. But as I said, we'll cover that in a future video. Right, so let's go head over to BGP peer 2. And if we do a run show route receive protocol, we'll do BGP and we type in our neighbor's address here. This will show us all routes we are receiving via BGP from this neighbor, and you'll see we are actually receiving these routes. Okay, and if we do a run show route, we should see these routes active in the routing table, and we are learning it via BGP. So the star there means it's active, it's learning it via BGP, and the next hop is this guy. All right, so this is pretty unsafe because this guy can then just send you rogue routes and bring down your network. I mean, if I now configure a static route, default route, and advertise it, I mean, this guy will receive a default route and your whole network would probably break. So that is where import policies come in. So if we go top edit policy options, policy statement, and we'll just say BGP import. Here you can define which routes you want to receive from which neighbor. So if we only want to receive this route, okay, 192.168.0.0, we just say set term 1 from protocol BGP, right, set term 1 from route filter. And now we're going to say 192.168.0.0/24 exact. oops, exact, and set term 1, then accept because we want to accept those routes. And then once again, set term reject, then reject. You can name this term whichever you want or whatever you want, just as long as it will be below the accept terms, because if we move this one up, then this term will not take effect. Right, so that's going to be it for our BGP import policy. But let me just show you, if we run this command again, run show route receive protocol BGP, you'll see, but we are still receiving that route. All right, so this is exactly the same as earlier. You need to define the import policy in your BGP group. So we'll just go edit protocols, BGP group, EBGP. It's exactly the same here. So we'll just do a show, and then we can say set import, and we say BGP dash import. All right, and you can do exactly the same here as well. If you do a set neighbor 10.10.10.1 import, you can define the import policy here as well. Okay, so but for us, we're just going to apply to the whole group. So we do show, and now we've got an import policy. Right, now if we do a commit here, now we can do the same, run show route receive protocol BGP and the neighbor's address. And I think I lost connectivity. I'll be right back. All right, sorry, I lost the connectivity to my lab here. So if we just this is just the BGP config here. So we've got the import policy. Now if we do the run show route receive protocol BGP and we type in the neighbor's address, now we should see only a single route. And there we go. So even though this guy over here, if we do run show route advertising protocol BGP 10.10.10.2, because that's the neighbor, you'll see we are advertising 3 routes, but we are only receiving 1 route from this BGP neighbor due to our import policy. Now, if you just want to accept everything from this neighbor, we can just go back into top, edit policy options, policy statement, BGP import, and under term 1, we'll just say edit term 1, set from route filter 192.168.1.0/24 exact, and we'll do the same for the 2.0/24. And if we have a look at our statement here, now it says from protocol BGP, then all these routes will be accepted. Okay, so then we can do a commit. This is only for term 1. If we just have a look at the whole policy there, edit policy options, show display set, then you'll see we've got a few options there under term 1, and then term reject is a reject. So if we go ahead and commit, which we've already done, now if you do run show route receive protocol BGP and we type in that neighbor again 10.10.10.1, now we are receiving all 3 routes. And if we do a run show route, you'll see that we now have all 3 of these routes once again. All right, that's going to be it for this video. It's a very quick one. You can obviously do the exact same in the reverse. If you want to advertise from BGP peer 2 to BGP peer 1, then we'll just use the exact same policy options that we've configured here. Basically, just modify whichever routes you want to advertise, then accept, then reject, and put it onto the export in the EBGP group over here. All right, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and as always, we hope to see you in the next one.